Okay, it is the Friday session. As I'm making the video right now, Bitcoin is hitting a fresh new low, just barely above 60,000. The previous low was taken out back on February 6th, which I told you it was going to be taken out. Back over here, I predicted that we would get a rally into 74 to 80,000 after dropping nearly 39%. Over here, I told you we were going to get rejection at the 200 period moving average and called another top on May 6th. Warning signs with bearish divergences and momentum signals were warning that trending signals were going to change. Oh, gee, it was correct. By the way, Bitcoin just broke 60,000. It is now at 59,900. Bitcoin is currently down over 6%, 6.14% at the moment for the Friday session. We were told this wasn't going to happen. I told you it was going to happen. Remember, I'm the guy that predicted 60,000 back at the top. I told you we were going to crash 50 to 52% minimum objective target to kick off the bear market. I was correct about that. We got a bear market rally back to the 200. This is exactly what we've done at other bear markets. And then it was followed by the next leg down. And again, person after person told me, oh, no, Bitcoin broke out here. No, Bitcoin broke out here. All these people have now joined the club. They've done it by buying into the hype and hopium nonsense rather than just being objective and looking at things objectively. I told you these people all right here, they were going to join the people back over here that told us 80,000 was the bottom. And again, oh, we had a breakout. We had a breakout. Here we go. And Bitcoin crashed 39%. Okay. And here, here we've had a breakout as Bitcoin has now crashed. Yet again, I'll get that exact number for you. I have it measured. They're going to join the club. And again, same thing over here at the final exit point. And Bitcoin was followed by a big crash. And the people that bought the top, and again, oh, it's a breakout. Bitcoin crashed 36%. Again, the hype and hopium nonsense will get you wrecked. People are on a steady diet of moonboy hoaxes, moonboy hype. How's that breakout? And, the 200 and 250,000 target that everybody was saying and Tom Lee promoted. How's that working out? How's the buy the dip working out at 105,000, 103,000, 99,000, 80,000, 60,000? How's that working out? But I told you the people in here were going to join the club. They were going to join the club and either be liquidated, get a stop loss for a loss, get stopped out, or worse, continue to ride Bitcoin all the way down. And you have people that do that. You have people that bought the top. You have people that bought the top and the final exit point and all the buy the dippers. People in here. You have people that are riding Bitcoin all the way down, just like they did the last bear market. That's what they do. See, buy the dip, let me educate you for a moment. Buy the dip doesn't work in a bear market. What works in a bear market is sell the rally. That's what works in a bear market. Sell the rally, sell the rally. And again, rejection at the 50, here rejection at the 100 period, not seen here, rejection at the 200. Sell the rally. Works in the bull market, pullbacks to the 50-week moving average, Bitcoin's average price, and buy the dip. But the Moon Boys are a one-trick pony. They don't know how to do anything else but buy the dip. And as I've said, again, a lot of these people hodl not by choice, but because they make foolish, bad choices, buying fake breakouts, buying the dip that keeps on dipping. You don't want to buy the dip that keeps on dipping. You want to buy the dip that ends the dipping. Buy the dip that keeps on dipping. You're a dip. I warned you, 80,000 is not the bottom, 60,000 is not the bottom. And again, now I'm being proven correct. At some point, listen carefully to me. Are you listening? Are you listening carefully? At some point, we're very oversold. At some point, we're going to get a bounce. Bottoming tail yesterday, but it's not being confirmed. We're moving to new lows. Maybe we get one today. Maybe we get a rebound. But at some point, you're going to get a rebound. Whether that's going to be a feeble rebound or a bigger rebound, I don't know. I think you can get a rebound back up, go lower, maybe form a divergence and get a bigger rally for a wave 2. Could be the crash wave 3 in a larger wave 1 down. Oh, the bear market is going to go on for at least 4 more months into late September or on into October. I'm looking at social media and I'm seeing boom boys all week calling another bottom. You remember them? The people that, and the experts that told us this wasn't going to happen and that we had a breakout over here and we had a breakout over here. You know, just like the fake breakouts over here and back up at the top. Now, if you've been following my work, if you've looked at my videos this week, you know that, again, the 200 period moving average, we're reaffirming the bearish signals. And again, when I call the top and predicted the first leg down, predicting the 50+% crash, I predicted a target of 60 to 63,000. I was correct. And they attacked me predicting the first leg down. Now they're attacking me for predicting the second leg down. But oh, gee whiz, am I right? Am I right? Yes, because I have good indicators. Indicators warned you that this was going to happen before it happened, as I've talked about, shown you the videos. And again, same people saying the same stuff to me here as they said to me back here as we've now dropped. And I'm pointing all this out because, again, Bitcoin's about to get a bullish golden cross as the 50 periods rolling back over, as I told you it would likely do. That's what it did in 2022. We got rejection at the 200, just as we did in 2022. Last bear market. And let me just say this. After I called the day of the bottom on April 7th and told you we were going to go to new highs, people believed back then that we were going to keep going. And I told you we have bottomed and we were going to go make new highs and we were going to go test major resistance. I told you if we cleared resistance, we could go to the Fibonacci extension levels from the previous sell-off. We stalled at the trend line of resistance. Then we would stall at the Fibonacci extension levels from the previous bear market, which we did in fact do. And I pointed all of this out back up at the top, talking about the 1, 2, 3 strikes you're out at major resistance. And again, a lot of people got angry with me for turning bearish, and I talked about the 4-year cycle, and I talked about going in here, rallying up into this level, and I told you if we stalled there, then again, we're likely going to top. That's why I called a top on October 6, 2025. I had a lot of people mad at me for doing that, but a lot of people cannot flip. They don't have the ability to flip from bullish to bearish. When this bear market ends, I'm going to flip back to bullish. But right now is not the time to be bullish. I have to see evidence of a bottom. If you follow my work and you've watched my videos yesterday and the day before, I showed you, I'm going to know exactly when the bottom happens because I'll have signals that will have turned back to bullish. And I'll have signals that will validate a bottom. And again, the moon boys tell us, oh, we're about to get a bullish golden cross. This is going to be so bullish. Over here, again, we get the death cross. Oh, that's so bullish. Oh, over here we got the death cross and it marked the bottom. In a bull phase, in a bearish phase, you get the death cross and you get rejection at the 200 period moving average or just above it. Here, just below the 200 period moving average. The moon boy world, everything is a breakout. Everything is a bottom. Everything is bullish. We don't want to be a perma bull. We don't want to be a perma bear. We want to be objective and look at things objectively. Again, this bear market should go on another 4 months. I'll reevaluate things when we get to September and October. And if I see evidence of a bottom, I will turn bullish. If I see evidence bear market is going to drag out and break the 4-year cycle, then I'll remain bearish. But I want to be objective. I want to be in harmony with Bitcoin. I want to be in alignment with Bitcoin. If Bitcoin wants to be bearish, then I want to be bearish. If Bitcoin wants to be bullish, then I want to be bullish. Bitcoin punishes those that are not in alignment with Bitcoin. Bitcoin punishes those that buy into the hype and the hopium nonsense. Bitcoin rewards those who are objective and who are in harmony with what Bitcoin is doing. The moment I'm making the video, we're trying to get a little bit of a bounce. Now we're down about 4%. We're dropping 18% for this week. Nothing goes straight down. Nothing goes straight up. At some point, we're going to get a bounce. You got Moon Boys already proclaiming a bottom over the last 3 or 4 days here. We continue to see the falling knife just continue to move in a free fall. Now, I warned you at the top, and right now we're down 18% for the week. Remember? Last week and over the weekend, I was warning you we're going to get a drop. You can't even imagine the drop we're going to get. I was showing that the pring parameter was rolling over. Person after person tell me how stupid I was for posting that chart, and yet, oh gee, I'm right again. Because I have good indicators. I told you when I call the top, a bunch of signals mark that top, and again, in the weekly time frame, I had signals mark the top, the week of the top, and the week after, some of the signals after, but we're in a confirmed bear market with 2 consecutive closes below the 50-week moving average, the green line you see right here. I told you back at the top we were going to drop 50 to 52% to kick off the bear market minimum objective target. I told you it might be a little bit more than that, but it was that right on the nose, 52%. We rallied up to the 200 period moving average. I told you that, again, eventually going to go down and tag the 200 period. Here we didn't do it. Here, now we're doing it. And you got a bunch of moon boys, and I told you the moon boys, throughout this decline, they're going to say this is a bottom, that we're going to go down to the 200 and 300 week moving average. I told you what they were going to say before they said it, just like I told you when they told us we had a breakout, when I told you and called the top, it was a fake out. Everybody predicting, we're going to go to 200, 250,000 by the end of 2025, and the bottom fell out of Bitcoin, the complete opposite. I was correct. And I told you they were going to move those targets into 2026. They have. Just as I told you, they're going to drop. They're going to proclaim that everything's a bottom. On the way down, these dips are the bottom, and then we're going to come down here, and then they're going to be really convinced that we're going to bottom. I think you're going to eventually take out the 200 here, consecutively closing below it. And I think it will begin to roll over. And I think that that's going to be extremely bearish. And that's why I'm saying the bear market may go on longer than the 4-year cycle. The 4-year cycle, at some point in history, the 4-year cycle could break. Right now, the people telling us, oh no, the super cycle, the 4-year cycle's dead, it's broken. That's poppycock, okay? The 4-year cycle remains intact. It may break if we have an extended bear market. Or if we see the bear market end on time, in the next bull market, it may go on longer and break the 4-year cycle. So the next bull or bear market, this bear market or the next bull, we could break the 4-year cycle. But right now, the 4-year cycle's intact. I've talked about it at great length and detail. Now here is Bitcoin's daily chart. I've marked support and resistance levels. And again, we turned off major resistance at the 80,000 to 84,000 area, which were these previous lows. I told you that, again, I believe we're eventually dropping to the 49,000 to 55,000 area here. Here we are now down at a new low at the moment at 59,000, taking out the 60,000 levels I correctly predicted would happen. But I think you're going to see some type of bounce or bottom in this range. Maybe we get a smaller bounce and then go lower, followed by a bigger bounce if a divergence forms on the daily chart, larger one on the 4-hour chart. Going to be bounces along the way, but eventually I think you're going to go down to this major level in here, and that is at the 25,000 area, and it's an 80% drop. You have some support in here, not much. More support in this area here. After we take out this 49,000 area, you've got a little bit here, but there's not much in the way of support until you get down here to the 25 to 26, 27,000 area. If we lose that level of support and we go down and hit the lower boundary of the channel, again, I think you're going to end up testing 15,000. Now, I think, as I've said, you're going to either higher low above 15,000 or take it out. And I am believing that we're likely going to take out 15,000. About a 90+% drop. And again, 90% is about 12 or 13,000. Goes low as 10 or 11,000 because of what's coming. So again, my target level remains between 12,000 and 25,000. That has been my target since the top, but I did predict have another target of 50 to 52% to kick off the bear market, which was this target. And now my target, at least a 68% drop, just like I called the last bear market, predicting it a 52% drop with this move from the last bear market. So too, we dropped 68% with the next leg down, and that takes you down to the 25,000 area. I could complete a measured move. The measured move is beyond, as I've shown you in this chart, beyond 25,000 if we look at it as we did a moment ago with the linear scaling. So this is why I think we're going to drop down to the 25,000. Once we bounce around this area somewhere, eventually take it out, ultimately go back and either test 15,000 or test 25,000 to 27,000. The signals continue to nail it. In the video, I'll be talking about what's causing the sell-off, and again, the outflows and strategy rattling the market. Again, the next leg down is just getting started. We're going a whole lot lower. Everybody's now calling yet a bottom. The Moon Boy is calling a bottom this week yet again. Hey, please support the channel. I don't have any sponsors. I turn those offers down, but I just have a direct relationship with you. I just put all this information out for free. These are the signals that continue to nail it that I use to make my decisions trading Bitcoin. I talked about the reversal at the top at major resistance or the final exit point, my short entry points at the top. And then I talked about adding to my position at the 100 period moving average. And I talked about taking half my profits here. Then I've talked about the short sellers getting another opportunity at the 200 period moving average and all the sell signals that happened there. I took advantage of that. I had to shut my comments off in the comment section. I was getting so attacked for saying that Bitcoin was going to collapse with rejection off the 200 period moving average. And I've got money on the line. I've got real money on the line here. I don't want these moon boys influencing me. I took half my profits off the table, kept half of my position, and then bought back right here. I told you when I first shut off the comments that, again, I don't want these people influencing me, and I'm glad I didn't let them influencing me because now, again, my signals are being proven correct yet again. Talk about these opportunities, the entry points back over here and adding to my position and selling into the collapse, and then about the bear flag and the rising wedge and the bearish reversions. If you find this information helpful, if this has helped you as much as it's helped me, please support the channel. Let me know you want this information. Rather than going playing golf, I'm just sitting here reviewing with you the stuff that I look at every single day, and it's nailed it, and it's been very helpful for me. I hope it's helpful for you, but I need to hear from you. Support the channel. Follow the link below. It'll take you to a secured site. You can donate any amount you want. But if you could just take a moment when you finish watching this video to step up to the plate. I mean, these signals are just amazing and are producing life-changing gains. If you're getting life-changing gains from this information, please take a moment and help out. I need to hear from you. Thank you for your consideration for that. You know, I tried to warn you at the May 6th high. Again, I called a peak at May 6th high with another lower high with the test of the 200 period moving average. And again, from the rejection at the 200 period, we got this topping tail in the monthly time frame just under our 10-month moving average. That's now being confirmed. We'll see how we close by the end of the month here. The month is still young, and we may see a bounce at some point. Going to be bounces along the way, but again, we're now taking out this low. Likely to see a summer sell-off that will probably go on into the fall. And again, we know that the bear market is going to go at least 4 more months, approximately to September, on into October somewhere. And it may be even extended further if the 4-year cycle breaks. But I tried to warn you about all this, and again, laughed at, mocked, and yet, oh gee, continued to be correct. I warned you about the topping tail back at the top and back in August, and I told you we had a similar topping tail at the January high, and I've talked about this monthly chart quite a bit, and we got another one right here. The sellers are at the resistance areas, major resistance at the top, 100 period moving average at 97,000, and then here at 82,000, the 200 period moving average in the daily time frame. Warned you about the divergences here in the monthly time frame back at the top. Warned you about the divergences in the weekly time frame. The long-term time frames are still bearish, even though we had the rally, and I predicted we'd get a rally, and I predicted we bottom on February 5th or 6th, and we did. I told you 60,000 was not the bottom, even though I'm the guy that predicted that we would move to 60,000 back up at the top. And here you can see, again, the topping tails up here at the top. And I talked about this back up at the top. And again, another one with the counter trend there at the January high. And you can see it really good on this chart, very similar to the topping tails back at the top right here. Here we broke the 10-month moving average. We got rejection at it, and very similar in our rallies here. The session, Bitcoin was down 6% at the lows. It's trying to recover at the moment, but it's now dropped over 28% since the May 6th high. And again, I called a top on May 6th. We remember we had warning signals when we were rallying up to just under the 200 period, and then we formed a divergence on the RSI and made a lower high there. We actually had a divergence. The RSI doesn't look at the topping tail. It only looks at the close. So we had a divergence there. We had it on other indicators. So on May 6th, I talked about it at great length of detail. And right after the peak, we saw the MACD roll over, completing its own divergence. Now listen carefully. Again, I told you we're becoming very, very oversold. At some point, we're going to get a bounce, whether it's going to be a feeble bounce or a bigger bounce. Who knows? I think you can get a more feeble bounce and still go lower if this is a crash wave 3 in a 5-leg push lower. And again, regardless how it plays out, whether a feeble bounce or a bigger bounce, again, there's going to be bounces along the way, but it's a counter trend. The Moon Boys get all excited about the feeble bounces so far, and this counter trend rally. Now, I warned you we were going to bottom on February 5th or 6th. We did bottom on February 6th, and I told you we were going to rally up to 74 to 80,000, and we did. We went a little bit higher, peaked to 82,000. But then now all of those gains have been now given back over the last just over 4 weeks. We peaked 4 weeks and 2 days ago. I told you the market's selling off sharply. Nasdaq's getting a major tech off, and I told you we could sell off ahead of the SpaceX IPO, and I talked about this on my Ron Walker channel. If you follow my S&P and Nasdaq videos, I've talked about this at great length in detail. I've talked about it a little bit here. See a sell-off with other assets ahead of the SpaceX IPO because fund managers raising money and raising money to buy the SpaceX IPO, and it could create a tech sell-off and a sell-off with more assets with more volatility, like with Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's what's happening. That's part of it. We're seeing mass exodus with the Bitcoin ETFs. Again, the Moon Boys continue to show us, everybody's buying. We see massive distribution all the way down since the October peak with the Bitcoin ETFs. But in the Moon Boy world, up is down and down is up. And everything is a breakout or a bottom. See if we get a rebound. We're getting very oversold on the RSI. But like I said, again, whatever bottom develops here, and if we rebound, whether feeble bounce or a bigger bounce, again, it's not the bottom. Just as 60,000 is not the bottom. I have indicators that are going to tell me when the bottom happens. We're not there. Just as we had a bottom over here, and we at 60,000, when I predicted that we would do that, we would rally on February 5th or 6th. We moved to extremes. There was no diversion. So again, the Moon Boys are going to tell us, this is marking another bottom. Bottom all over again around the 2 and 300 week moving average, as I've warned, have been warning you about the rising wedge. We broke down, we back tested it, it formed into head and shoulders. We took out the 50, the green line, the 10 and 20 dropped below the 50, and I told you the bearish arrangement of the moving averages were telling us we were going to get a dramatic drop. Oh, gee, what happened? I was right, we got a dramatic drop. We were trying to bounce around the 100 period. I told you pre-parameter was rolling over at the center line. I was warning we're about to get a dramatic drop. We're down 18% for the week. It bounced off the lows, but we had an 18% drop. I warned you it was coming. Fell on deaf ears, but right again. Posted this chart right before the big drop, and again, posting that pre-parameter was rolling over, just like what we had back over here, under the center line here, in the negative region. It happened right before this 68% drop. I told you we've done exactly what we did over here. We dropped 52%, we rallied into the 200, and we collapsed. We dropped 52%, we rallied into the 200, and we're now collapsing. And we're, again, likely done with the bear market. It was just more feeble this time around, just under 38%. We have the 4-hour chart. The 4-hour chart's forming a triple bullish divergence now with this low. At some point, you're going to get a bounce, and it may end up being a larger divergence that forms in the daily time frame, and a larger or a divergence that forms in the daily time frame as we bounce and then we go lower, and you may see a larger divergence develop here. I think that's very likely. So we'll probably get some kind of bounce at some point here and then turn lower. Again, there's going to be bounces along the way, but we're going a whole lot lower. We've completed an ABC move. I talked about the Elliott wave counts. We're tagging the 200-week moving average. We may see a test of this trend line and the support area and the 200 and 300-week moving average and try to bounce right there. Even if we bounce right now, we could still go lower. Moon boys, get ready for the moon boys to proclaim another bottom. They're already doing it now. Again, the measured move that I've talked about. I told you the moon boys better pray I'm wrong, that the channel just didn't expand, and now we're moving to a new low, so I'm probably going to be right that you're getting another 5-leg push down and eventually going to come down into the lower boundary. And that's going to take us, 68% drop takes you down to 25,000. That's what we did the last bear market. We could go, again, much further. That's an 80% drop. Bear markets for Bitcoin, 80 to 90%. And again, I told you it might be, like the first bear market was 93%, moving just under 12,000. But again, 12,000 to 25,000 has been my target. I talked about the Elliott wave counts completing the 4-year cycle in September or October. I've talked about this earlier in the week. I talked about, again, and have talked about my Elliott wave counts for a long time. And again, here we have the 5-leg push down for A, an ABC backup for B, and that would be followed by another 5-leg push down for a zigzag correction, a 5-3-5 pattern. And that means that we bottom out in here somewhere, get some kind of rebound, very similar to what we had here. You've sold off, you've rebounded, you got the final exit point at 116,000 at wave 2, and then we saw the bottom fall out of Bitcoin and eventually came all the way down, dropping 52%. And again, this is the next leg down in the crash. The bear market rally is likely done, as I've said. My original thesis was we would drop and then get a larger bear market rally, but this extended into the 200 period moving average, so it's more likely that it is now done. Talked about we've stalled at VWAP's resistance, and we stalled at 200-day moving average and my other resistance line in the weekly time frame, all suggesting the bear market rally is over and we're resuming the bear market crash. The measured move takes us down to about 15 or 16,000 there to test the low from the last bear market. And I told you, we're either going to get a higher low around 25,000 or a lower low and take it out. And if you do, you're going down to 12,000, 13,000, maybe a little bit lower, as low as 10 or 11,000 if we reach the trend line of support from the previous 2018 lows. Talked about the chart, not seen here, but again, I've marked out a 5-leg push lower. This could end the bear market, and the Fed will eventually do jumbo cuts. That could create a bottom. Stock market is selling off sharply today. They tech sell off, and again, the stock market peak and begin to play catch up to Bitcoin. Bitcoin could bottom out ahead of the stock market. Alternative count is a complex correction. Rather than a 5-leg push lower, it unfolds in a 3-leg push down, an ABC or maybe another WXY complex correction. But I have marked this as a WXY for W, an ABC for X, and we're now going to get a 3-leg push down if we don't get the 5. This would be my alternative count as I've marked here, alternative. Now, this week we have Michael Saylor's strategy selling, Mr. Never Sell Your Bitcoin, selling his Bitcoin. They had to do it in order to meet a dividend payment. Warned you long ago that this was coming. Either eventually they're going to have to sell their Bitcoin to pay the dividend, or they're going to have to eventually suspend the dividend payments. Bitcoin's going a whole lot lower, and it would when it does. And I told you again, talked about previously that strategy's Bitcoin strategy beginning to unravel could create selling. And I've talked about this months ago, now seeing that happen. Bitcoin drops as strategy surprise sell raises fresh questions for the crypto bulls. We're in a confirmed bear market, and Bitcoin's going on. I know people are calling a bottom yet again, and yet these are the people that keep telling us there's a bottom. We still have the perma bulls, Michael Saylor and Tom Lee, and many other so-called experts and moon boys. Again, Tom Lee just a couple of months ago, if you knew what I knew, Bitcoin would be at 10 million. And 2 weeks ago, he posted that video of him hunting down the bear and carrying it off on his shoulder. Do that a shock. I posted days ago if what I believed was going to happen, Michael Saylor is going to go into shock. Again, right now we just hit 59,000. That's still not the bottom. So market selling off on strategy selling to meet their dividend payment, and strategy is going to have a lot of problems later. It's the first sign of cracks. Bitcoin's going lower. Bear market gets extended into 2027, they're going to really have problems. If it just goes another 4 months, then maybe you got a shot at a bottom around 25,000. But again, target level remains 12 to 25,000. That's an 80 to 90% drop. That's what Bitcoin has done in the past. Now, I previously told you that strategy is going to have problems once Bitcoin drops below their Bitcoin purchases drop below its average price. Their purchases, Bitcoin has dropped below their average price, which is 75,700. Bitcoin continues to drop, they're going to have more problems. So again, we'll see what happens. I've warned you about this months and months ago at the beginning of the bear market and throughout the bear markets. Ever since October, I've talked about this. I wanted to update you on it because now we're seeing Michael Saylor, Mr. Never Sell Your Bitcoin, sell his Bitcoin. They sold 32 Bitcoin between May 26th and May 31st, roughly $2.5 million to fund dividend payments. Now, a smaller amount of Bitcoin compared to their massive holdings. As I've said, in the future, Bitcoin does what I'm saying it's going to do, and so far I've been correct, continues to drop. They're going to either be forced to sell more Bitcoin in all likelihood or eventually reduce or suspend the dividend payments. I had to go to another source to get their average price of 75,700. They don't have it on their chart on their site anymore. I believe they used to have it on there, if I'm not mistaken about that, but it's not here anymore. I saw these purchases at the top and at the counter trend rallies. They weren't that aggressive at the bottom. They sure got aggressive at the top. The counter trend rallies in the bear market. That's why, again, Saylor's strategy was able to ride out the bear market the last time. Their average price was at lower levels, and they didn't have the massive position they have now. So they're able to ride out the last bear market. But again, if they'll be able to do that this time or not, we'll have to see what happens. I told you months ago, it could create problems, real problems in the future for Bitcoin. Bitcoin dropping, creating problems for MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy dropping, creating problems for Bitcoin. Taking confidence as Mr. Never Sell Your Bitcoin sells his Bitcoin. So strategy has unrealized losses now, and so does Tom Lee. Sorry about that. Years ago, I had a friend named Mike Lee. This is Tom Lee's Bitmine holdings. Again, Ethereum. They purchased $18 billion worth. Okay, it's now only worth $8.6 billion, and they have an unrealized loss of $10 billion, over $10 billion. Same thing with Saylor. Again, the experts have now been proven wrong, along with the Moon Boys. According to this article, Michael Saylor bet on Bitcoin, Tom Lee bet on Ethereum. Now both are in over 20 billion in paper losses, according to this article written today. We just saw Tom Lee 10 billion, and apparently Michael Saylor right around that same amount. According to the article, about an 11 billion loss for Saylor's strategy with their Bitcoin holdings. We just saw about a 10 billion loss, unrealized losses for Tom Lee did it again. Tom Lee's Bitmine. But again, and Tom Lee was doing exactly what he did the last bear market. Again, calling for 200. The last time he called 200,000 was the last bear market. And Bitcoin went from 69,000 down to 15,000. Kept calling for 200,000 the entire bear market. I'm showing you all this stuff because a lot of people have followed these guys off a cliff. Followed the other Moon Boys and the other experts. And there are a lot of other experts. The experts saying, oh, the 4-year cycle's dead, and the super cycle, which is, again, another Moon Boy hoax. The people that bought into all this hype and hopium are now, again, either liquidated, massive losses, stop losses, or even worse, they rode Bitcoin or Ethereum all the way down, buying into this hype and hopium nonsense. But I just say, doesn't it make more sense to, when we see evidence that the bull market has ended, to sell Bitcoin or Ethereum, either go to cash or a person can go short, not a recommendation to anybody buy or sell Bitcoin or Ethereum. When there's clear evidence of a bottom, to go long, but I'm telling you, there's no evidence of a bottom. Right now, strategy selling Bitcoin has rattled, unnerved the market, the crypto markets, and I tried to warn you back up the top when these guys and others were making their ridiculous targets for Bitcoin and Ethereum. And again, I was shouted down, yet I've now proven to be correct. According to this article, yesterday the losses are, again, just under 11 billion, so unrealized losses for strategy.